Let's talk about some degrees, guys. Like, here's, the secrets, which, not really secret anymore because they're all in books that you can buy. There's 3 classes. You got the Minerval class, you've got the Masonic class, and you've got the Mysteries class, which were separated into a few different degrees. The Minerval class was really the main thing, like that I think kind of defines the Illuminati as people think of it and know it. It was the gateway into the organization. You would start as a novitiate. Novitiate would have to be proposed by a superior. And the novitiate class, the novitiate order was basically a process of getting the candidates. There was this back and forth where the novitiates would get a superior, but they didn't know anyone else in the Illuminati. They just knew one. They'd have to write papers and answer questions and affirm their belief in mathematics and science and rationalism and all this stuff to prove themselves. And they were followed and psychologically observed by their superior. But, as I said before, this is where this whole idea that they had a cell system that could have led to perhaps the French Revolution's way of dealing with things. It wasn't really a cell system because they actually had a way to be able to deliver a letter that reported on their superior. It was like they were actually given like a form letter to fill out about how their interactions with their superiors were. Once they were decided that they could be trusted to keep a secret and that they were psychologically fit and devoted to these Enlightenment ideals, they were proposed for advancement into the Minerval class. The Minervals were really the main group. They knew each other. They met in lodges of sorts. They called them Minerval churches. This entire Minerval degree system would be very familiar to many people with question and answers and knocks at a door. A candidate was prepared and then led into a whole system of stuff that happened. This is the jewel of a Minerval, where we can see the owl in the book and sort of sums up everything that they do. I'll come back to some of this in a second, but here, this is an interesting part of the degree that would happen. The Minerval Church actually had something similar to a tracing board or a master's carpet or these paintings. And I'll read you, this is one piece of ritual I'll just read so that you guys can get a sense of how it is. But, this would be at the end of the Minerval degree. You've now been obligated, you're now a Minerval. It says, "You are now entrusted with the care of young pupils who shall be enlightened under your leadership and wisdom. The work requires vigilance, industry, and energy. Let the letters inscribed on the order's seal, PMCV, remind you of this. They stand for Perme Ceci Vident. Through me, the blind can see." Which you can see, this is kind of low rents, but there's a lot of questions and hypothesizing about what that means.
It's on your left-hand column there if you go back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this again, so they'd be looking at these. They put the jewel on, and they explain what that is. Now, take a look at the pyramid, and you can find depicted on the carpet of the Minerval Church, around which lie scattered here a number of separate stones. This is the symbol of our illustrious order, which takes large steps closer to its goal. Only if the members can join forces in working towards its attainment for the honor of the supreme architect and the happiness of the world, which is why you find written here, DP, Deo Proximo, closer to God. So obviously there's some religious overtones to what is being explained in this diagram, which was on the master's carpet, infamously as the unfinished pyramid. The image of Pallas or Athena is in the other painting, this one here, and the owl signify wisdom and vigilance. These must make us into men first, and then the spirit drawn forth from the darkness blinds prejudices and raging passions, just as Pallas holds fast the Gorgon's head. Only then do we raise ourselves from the class of animals to the highest step, where we learn to get to know ourselves, the world, and the most supreme architect, and we reach this step through our efforts to gain wisdom and virtue. For this, however, one requires courage, zeal, and a brow that radiates honesty, just like the helmet on Minerva's head. A clean conscience withstands ridicule and slander, just as the shield is impenetrable to any weapon. The spear is a symbol of steadfastness. The quiver and the arrow signify the power and eloquence when it springs from the fullness of the heart, while the palm branch symbolizes peace, patience, and serenity. The 3 lamps, which are not pictured here, they had 3 candles. Point to the 3 main divisions of the illustrious order. We talked about the classes. 2 are unlit with higher class. At the same time, they are a symbol of knightly diligence, a sacred darkness, secrecy, and reservation. Our light shines quietly without any ostentatious gleam. The brethren must never flaunt their knowledge, must tolerate the weaker just as they do the enlightened ones, and always be inwardly happy and content. The 3 feet of the lamp stand for silence, obedience, and moderation. Their foundation and focus is industriousness, and this is what we are now primarily expected of you in this new career. Take your place amongst the ranks of the collaborators. That's the Minerval degree, the end of the Minerval degree, which I'm sure some people find rings familiar, but I found this pretty fascinating. I mean, the lecture section is a little bit more about morals and ethics and whatnot, but he's definitely promoting, the growth of the world through harmony and humility and devotion to the great architect or whatever you believe in, which was in contrast to my previous understandings. Some other things you'll see, the next degree would be Illuminatus Minor. Illuminatus Minor was sort of an optional section of the Minerval degree, but basically it's kind of like Master of the Lodge. The Illuminatus Minor purpose of that was to promote the candidate to a position to supervise and observe the Minerval churches and also consecrate new Minerval churches and lodges. Sometimes you'll see different insignias on these, and one you'll see is Sigil Ecclesiae Minervae, so this is the sign of the Minerval church. And sometimes the Illuminatus Minor would run a church, or the superior of the church would even have their own sort of lodge pin. So you've seen maybe at the beginning there was a badge like this that had SEMT, which is Sigil Ecclesiae Minervae Thebes, or the Minerval Church of Thebes. As I mentioned earlier, they all kind of took on these classical names. I should have gone to this slide. So here, so this is the sign of a Minerval church. This is the sign of the Minerval Church of Thebes, who was a particular master of that lodge. It's kind of neat to see that, they had their own sort of regalia and pins that they collected. Yes?
I think when you look at the owl coming from the Athena, the spiritual group of Athena back in ancient Greece, the owl was significant because it was the creature that can see at night. And from the day creatures that sleep during the day represents the separation from being able to see what's in front of them, the knowledge that is given to them by their creator. And the owl for the Athenian priesthood was that representation,
Right.
being able to see in the dark.
I think it's a great comment, and definitely rings true to some of the things we were trying to say.
Just a minor question, but did you have them say at the end of this degree work, the collaborators? Is that how they viewed themselves, as collaborators? And
That is the specific translation. Take your seat amongst the collaborators.
Not companions or brothers?
No. They had a goal. They really did. I mean, they had a stated goal to help change the world. Like that was Weishaupt's whole big thing was, our goal is to change the world by becoming better men, which is a very slight twist, but an important thing to note. So the Minerval class, again, most Illuminati members were basically members of the Minerval class. This is where it starts to spread. They're forming churches and whatnot. But to advance to the higher degrees, you had to go through the Masonic class. They conferred Enter Apprentice, Fellowcraft, and Master Mason degree. And again, you can read the exposés, and they're really, really similar to what we practice today. It's not really that different at all. Once you've taken these degrees, and there was some speculation you could actually bypass this, having been a Mason prior to joining the Illuminati. You could be like, hey, check the box. I already took these. They're that similar. I went to Lodge of Willemsbad or whatever. Here's my Master Mason card. I'm like, can I just get straight to the Scottish Masonry stuff? And they're like, yeah, sure. This is really interesting stuff. The Scottish Masonry stuff is pulled pretty much straight out of Rite of Strict Observance. It has a lot of symbolism. Anyone here is a Scottish Rite member would recognize St. Andrew's Cross and some of the inscriptions here. The Scottish novice or Illuminatus major, that's the seal of their degree. They had something called the Prefect's Order Star, or the Perfect Order Star, depending on the translation. So pre-Lodge of Perfection stuff, potentially. Kind of starts to add into, again, if you're Scottish Rite Mason, that would mean something to you. But, they had an entire middle point, which was also sort of the final point. Most members really only got to this point in the Illuminati system before it all broke down. People hadn't really progressed much past this, but, it was a complete system, just sort of with like this, sort of other thing tacked on to the front. Which brings me to the mysteries class. So these are sort of the most hotly debated and interesting points. At this point, when these are really being written, Knige's gone. He's split after Wilhelmsbad. Like, he's like, screw this, it's getting too weird, getting too political. And he was fighting with Weishaupt about the goals of the order. So these are most likely written almost entirely by Weishaupt, but they're still really interesting. The lesser priest degree is super heavy on Christian symbolism. Definitely gets into some Rosicrucian symbolism. It smacks very largely of the 18th degree of the Scottish Rite. They discuss the importance of the letters I, N, R, I. They discuss the letters I, A, K, I, N. These are required to move on to Scottish Knight. Some of this means something to some of you, might not mean to others, but I found it somewhat profound that, all this stuff from the 18th degree is kind of sitting here in this mysteries class, the lower mysteries class. Very much worth reading, but again, it's really heavy on a particular type of Christian symbolism. The lesser regent degree, princeps, that was sort of another level that you went through. It was really, if you were, in theory, because I don't think these degrees were really ever conferred, if you were moved up to lesser regent, you would be part of the political system of governing all of the lodges. This is kind of moving up the ranks of how to control and manage what's going on within the order. You didn't necessarily have to take the princeps degree to continue moving forward. Some interesting symbols and regalia that were given and talked about in these degrees. A white pillar, 6.5 feet tall, on top of which is a red pillow and a golden crown, a shepherd's crook, and a realistic artificial palm leaf. They specifically mentioned it should be a realistic but artificial palm leaf hanging from it. I thought it was kind of humorous. A table stands to the left of the regent. There are garments placed for the candidate to wear. There's a leather breastplate with a cross on it. It was red. Over that would be a cloak of white with a red cross on the chest and a red collar. Red boots were being worn. The people conferring the degrees wore these hats, and these are just sketches. Chances are this stuff was never, ever built. Like, these are sketches from Weishaupt's notes. He had written all these degrees, which are essentially long lectures, and made these doodles, but I suspect that this has never actually existed. This cross radiating out light was what the person conferring the degree would wear. Let's see. And then last, we'll get into the Docetus degree, which Merrick had talked a lot about. They really do get into this idea of Christ being not a physical being a spiritual being that was, pervasively inhabiting the earth, that it was somewhat unknowable. I'm not going to get into a lecture on Docetism. You guys can look that up yourself, but it's essentially the Docetus degree starts to really get interesting here, and the fact that Weishaupt has gone from this sort of moralist and rationalist society when he's got the club that then progresses into the Minerval, and now he's essentially just going on and on about spiritualism. And I think at this point he probably knew the order was being disbanded, defunct, so it wasn't going to happen. And by the time you get to the final degree, Philosophiae Sages, it's essentially just a big, long lecture and treatise about Weishaupt's feelings about spirituality, mysticism, and I think this is my personal feeling, that there's a real progression in the formation of degrees that goes from this rationalist, objectivist almost, and it's placed in extremely spiritual, extremely mystical place, and they're wonderful to read. I highly recommend reading them.